Good evening, Garden City. I'd like to call to order regular city council meeting of Monday, January 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. First item on our agenda is our opening ceremony, which consists of the national anthem, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for those service members who have given their lives for our country. Would you please rise?
Go start, I'll go. How about just the pledge?
No, because it might be playing on TV.
It's not, there's no flag on there.
All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance then. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Technical difficulties. Mr. Miller, if you take roll, please.
Mayor Jacobs.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dold.
Present.
Councilmember Karafotis.
Here.
Councilmember Squires.
Here.
Councilmember Earl.
Here.
Councilmember Witt.
Here.
Councilmember Lynch.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you do have a quorum with all 7 members present.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 is the approval of the agenda.
Mayor,
Councilmember Witt.
I make a motion to approve the Monday, January 22nd, 2024 council meeting agenda as presented.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Lynch. Comments from the table? From the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 5, we have recognition. Come read a resolution. This is for Career and Technical Education Month, and I'd like to call up Ms. Linda Bomarito. And I believe she brought 3 students, Duke Wilson, Jordan Goodwin, and Marshauna Hill. And I will read the resolution. Career and Technical Education Month. You guys can come in. Whereas the month of February 2024 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education. And whereas Career and Technical Education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness. And whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas career and technical education programs ensure that employers have access to a qualified and thriving workforce ensuring America's a strong and competitive economy. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Garden City does hereby, on this 22nd day of the month of January in the year 2024, proclaim the month of February 2024 as Career and Technical Education Month in the city of Garden City. And we have a certificate for you. Come on in and get a picture, and then I think you guys want to say something? Yes. Want to get a picture first, and then we'll... Yep, careful. Okay. Go ahead if you...
Okay. Thank you for having us as guests this evening and proclaiming and recognizing career and technical education in Garden City. These are three of the members of our DECA Club at Garden City High School. And DECA is an organization that prepares students for roles in business, and they also become leaders in both school and work and in areas outside of school and work. They are very involved with our community, and it's also a competitive club. We take on schools from Wayne County, which we just did, and we also go on to the state level, and then we go on to the international level. So Duke is going to tell you a little bit about that.
How you guys doing? We just went to the district's competition and we won 53 medals and have 25 members eligible to compete at the state level. Cougars Corner, our school store, has won the highest national honor of gold certification for 11 years, and we raise money every year to send a child to MDA camp.
Hi, you guys. We visit the senior tower, which is next door, and we do crafts and play games with the residents. We go to elementary schools to help kids learn how to save money and treat others kindly, and how to avoid bullies. In our school, we help set up career and college fairs in the commons during lunch to create lunchtime activities to keep the classmates involved.
DECA is just one of the 3 clubs in our school to compete in the world outside of Garden City. Our other programs that we have are construction trades and printing, graph communication. In these career programs, we learn about real work skills, ethics, and learn how to cooperate with teamwork.
This is a cornhole set. The construction class makes it, the graphics class drew the logo or made the logo, and we at the school store resell it. We have to monitor materials, purchasing and use, watch our budgets through cost controls, and handle promotion and inventory. These are just a few skills we have picked up from just this one item.
Another example, we just did a step-a-thon to raise money for muscular dystrophy. Our goal is always to raise over $2,000 so we can send a child to camp. And our graphics department made these really cool medallions for the people that participated. And they also made us our shirts for the participants also. And these ladies right here designed our logo on the back. And then these are companies in Garden City that participated and did our and sponsored our steps. So thank you so much. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of what we do in the CTE department at Garden City High School, and also to let you know about these amazing DECA kids because they're wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Oh, you're awesome. Okay, great job by all those students. Item 6, state and county officials, and I don't see anybody here. Item 7, we have a presentation from Plant Moran, Dave Helensack, and Phil Femininio. I think I said it right.
Nailed it. Well, thank you. Again, my name is Dave Helensack, audit partner with Plant Moran. With me this evening, Phil Femininio, and we are here to present the results of the financial statement audit for the City of Garden City for the year ended of June 30 of 2023. You should have 3 documents in front of you this evening, the largest being the financial statement itself. Also included is a communication to those charged with governance. And then finally, the majority of our presentation tonight, Phil will be covering through the graph package. Prior to this evening, Phil and I did meet with the city manager as well as the finance director to cover a draft of these financial statements before they did go final. We covered them in depth, I'd say fund by fund, note by note, to ensure the information that was turned over for audit and compiled in this financial statement before signed off by management was consistent with what was turned over for that review. This statement itself, again, is really the city's financial statement. The only part of it that's truly Plant Moran's is the audit opinion. As a result of the audit procedures, the opinion that we were able to give the city this year is an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that you can give a set of financial statements. What that means is these statements, as presented, fairly reflect the financial position of the city as of June 30 of 2023, the change in that financial position, the revenues and the expenditures which are included in the document, statement of cash flows for the water and sewer fund, as well as the notes included in the document. Again, the highest level of assurance, one that we were happy to give as a result of our audit procedures. So I'm going to turn it over to Phil. He's going to walk us through the graphs. We've tried to, in the past, really touch on the general fund, a little bit of water and sewer fund. If you have any questions as we go along, feel free to stop. Phil will answer those at that time. And then before I go on to discuss the letter, we can perhaps answer any questions on the financials, on anything you may have questions on that we didn't cover as far as a result of the financial presentation. So I'll turn it over to Phil.
All right, thank you, Dave. So all of you should have been given a graph package, and it's showing on the screens here as well. So as Dave mentioned, this is really to highlight the big set of financial statements that you have in front of you. So the first slide that we wanted to talk about is looking at your general fund revenue. And really we're doing this over the past 4 years. So you will see that there was a decrease in revenue by about $771,000. And I do want to note that that was expected. With last year, you may recall, we recognized all the ARPA funding that was received, which was about $2.8 million. So we were expecting there to be a decrease, as that is a one-time payment. And so that decrease was offset by increases in property tax revenue from increase in property tax values, as well as another major item was interest in other revenues. So 2022 was a poor market year, was a stronger market year. So you had some increases there as well as an increase in fines and fees. The next slide is looking at your general fund expenditures. So here you'll see the past 4 years as well, and you will see there was a growth in those expenditures, increasing about $1.27 million this year. Part of that increase is $440,000 for transfers. So that was transfers from your general fund to your capital projects fund for those capital projects. As well as there was some increase in public safety and recreation and culture costs. So the recreation and culture really relate to some additional costs incurred at Maplewood and Radcliffe. The next slide we have here for you is once again showing the past 4 years, but it's showing your revenue next to your expenditures. And then there's a line going through which is your unassigned fund balance, which is fund balance that hasn't been assigned or restricted and can be used on anything. What we want to show here is you'll see that your expenses were slightly higher than your revenues by about $424,000. And while that was higher, the original amended budget actually expected to use $1.1 million, and you only ended up using about $424,000. So it is really showing the city making that sure to try to be cost conscious with their general fund. The next slide we have is looking at the fund balance, so going a little more in detail in the different categories of the fund balance of your general fund. So you'll see the largest is that unassigned fund balance, with the next one being the assigned fund balance. So last year, when all that ARPA revenue was recognized, it was then assigned for future capital projects. And so you'll see that that revenue is still being assigned now as those capital projects are starting. And so that will be being used up. And then you also have on here your non-spendable, so that's money that's already put in prepaids or inventory, so can't really be converted back into cash. So that will show up as non-spendable, with all the rest being unassigned. So as Dave mentioned, we also like to talk a little bit about the water and sewer fund. So here we're showing the operating revenue of the water and sewer fund and comparing it to the operating expenditures without depreciation, just as depreciation isn't a cash expense. So you'll see your revenues were about slightly higher than last year, with your expenses increasing. So the increase in expenses was due to repair and maintenance costs increase on some of the water and sewer lines, as well as pension expense. So the pension is recorded as of 12/31/2022. As you're a part of the MERS plan, that is when MERS reporting year is. So during that year, there was significant investment loss. It didn't have any of the recoveries from the first half of 2023. So you will see that with that loss, it increased your pension liability, which will then increase your pension expense, which is part of the reason for the increase in the operating expenses here in the water and sewer fund. And then on the final graph we like to show the working capital, and this is really showing the liquidity of the water and sewer fund. And so what it's doing is comparing your current assets, which are assets expected to be converted into cash or can easily be converted into cash within a year, and comparing that to your current liabilities, which are those amounts expected to be due within a year, due and paid within a year. And so you can really see that there is that decrease over the past several years down to $908,000. And really this amount tends to fluctuate with the amount of cash and investments that you have in your water and sewer fund, which did go down about $1.9 million this year. So it's just something to keep track of as you are getting lower on your working capital. So that being said, if there's any questions on this before Dave gets into the letter.
If I could just add on a little bit to what Phil had talked about on the water and sewer fund, so that it's page 5 of the page 5 of the presentation. So somebody might be looking and saying, okay, if, especially for 22 and 23, if we've got revenues, a couple $1 million higher than expenditures, how is the cash position decreasing so much? The way that the water and sewer accounting works, it's on a full accrual basis, which is, what Phil had mentioned, we excluded depreciation. But there are certain other costs that are cash outflows that don't show as expense. For instance, capital outlay or capital asset purchases, as well as principal payments on debt. So really, the difference between those blue and yellow lines on the expense side, the rest of that cash outflow is from needs that aren't necessarily going to show as an expense, but they're capitalized and depreciated over a period of time. So I just wanted to make that clear, because you look at it, it's like, well, geez, this doesn't, it doesn't make any sense, but it really does when you look at it from that perspective, which is why when we've talked with management in the past on water and sewer analysis, even though the reporting mechanism is on a full accrual basis, a lot of the rate setting that ends up being done is on a cash basis. So you've got to combine the two. Your finance, folks do know that, but it's really kind of connecting those two accounting methods into really what the needs are, and then keeping in mind not only current working capital, but the need of the working capital on a go-forward basis. So just wanted to clear that up if anybody had any questions on that part of it. If there's nothing else on the financial statements or on the financial information, I would like to talk about the communication we had to those charged with governance. So it's a 3-part letter. 2 of them are required communications. The 3rd part is a really legislative type matters and other information that we like to put together and provide our clients. I know you're inundated with all sorts of information from the associations that you belong to, but at least we try to bring at least the financial financial part of that together in one place so that you've got it, in a drawer someplace that you can refer to it if needed. As it relates to internal control related matters, so we issued our opinion based on the financial information. While the auditing standards do require us to understand and test the internal control system, we do not issue an opinion on the internal control system. The auditing standards would require us, if we identify any deficiencies or weaknesses in the system as a result of our audit, we will communicate that in writing to those charged with governance. In this case, it's the city council and the mayor, and have those discussions, available for any questions. Again, this letter, much like the financial statement, was covered with the city manager and the finance director in our draft meeting. So we had two items on page 2 that fell under this weakness category. The first one on page 2 is the auditor identified journal entries. So, during the course of an audit, when we go through the procedures, it is not unusual for any audit when we're going through it to, test and recommend entries to ensure that the statements are completed in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. In a journal entry, if the adjustment that's made reaches a certain level, then it falls into this level. There might be some that we have that are extremely immaterial that we wouldn't include in this communication. So what we've got here is a short list in that first paragraph of the type of adjustments that we had. We didn't necessarily quantify them, but we do have them listed. What I can tell you is these are almost exclusively related to year-end closing entries. So it's cut off at the year-end. It may be the capitalization of assets towards the end of the year. So it's really just trying to hit that hard cutoff as of June 30. Operationally through the year, or the information that's reported from a revenue and expenditure side that would have had a significant adjustments on information that was shared with you during the year, we didn't have any such adjustments. And why I feel that's important is, yes, we've got to communicate this, but we feel based on the work that we did, there would be reliance on all the interim information that council receives during the year. So we made the adjustments. We recommended the adjustments. Management agreed with them, we posted them, and they were included within the financial statement. The other item is clearly a control item. So as part of our testing, we do test, I mentioned just capital assets generally in the water and sewer fund, but we do test capital assets, and if they reach a certain level, there's the procurement session. We did find an item that did need to be reported on. So, we focus primarily on the City of Garden City's, financial information as part of our presentation, but the Downtown Development Authority is a discretely presented component unit of the city. So we actually do an audit of that as well, and it's included within the statements, and we give an opinion on that. And when we do that, we're looking at the control sections as well. So there was an instance in the procurement where it didn't appear that the DDA had followed the procurement policy. So when we went through that, we're just required to, say a policy existed, it didn't seem to follow it, and let those charged with governance. So, that was our only comment on it. It's more following the policy, not that there was anything wrong with the policy or anything like that. So those are really the two items from a control standpoint. Section 2, required communication to those charged with governance. So you recall prior to the start of the audit, I would have sent a communication out talking about the scope and timing and the planning of the audit, what we deem to be the higher risk areas or basically the areas where if they were incorrect could result in a material misstatement of the financial statement. So we addressed those, and we had indicated how we were going to test those to ensure we could get to a level where we could issue an unmodified opinion. At the same time, I gave everyone the opportunity to contact me if they had any specific concerns about any transactions or any financial information in general, and we could include that and tailor our audit approach to ensure we'd be addressing those items. So that was the pre-audit communication. This communication really is a communication where you're looking for exceptions. I can tell you in the 2 pages that cover section 2, it is that the layout is really prescripted by the standards, so we'll see things like significant audit findings, and normally say, well, geez, significant audit findings, that's a big deal. That's the language that the standard uses, but when you look under that section, it's really just talking, hey, you followed the policies, you followed GAAP, you did basically everything you were supposed to do. It talks about estimates and the use of estimates, because not everything is everything in your financial statement is going to be tied out to an invoice. For instance, I think Phil alluded to earlier about pensions. So you got a pension liability. Well, we can't point to it, here's a service that we got and here's the amount that's due. There's actuarial assumptions involved. There's mortality tables and discount rates and all kinds of things that get involved with that estimate. So, there's estimate involved. We do review the estimates as part of our audit procedures to make sure that they're reasonable and they're consistent with the activity that's involved with that particular cycle. We had no disagreements with management. We had no, uncorrected misstatements that would have risen to the level of, of a material difference in the financial reporting. But I would say is really overall the financial records and the responses to the audit inquiries that we have during the audit were very good. So finance, as far as making sure we got what we needed and presenting the financial information with little to no adjustments was, it shows that you can have really good reliance on the financial information that comes from that department during the year. Section 3, again, legislative type activities, and I wasn't really going to go through this really at all. The one part that I think I talk about every year is cybersecurity. I know everybody, we're staying on top of that. Our firm, we get a report, I think it's every 2 months, that has this ridiculous amount of times that folks from the outside, bad actors, are trying to get into our system. Like, it's in the millions. From a firm perspective, we know the importance of that because there's obviously a lot of information I'm sure there's that people would like to get their hands on. And it's just a reminder that this is one of those things that will continues to needs to be focused on. And you can never get complacent on, hey, we're good enough, because somebody's always going to find a better way to try to get in your system. So, keep that top of mind. If you don't have a cybersecurity budget, you probably need to start thinking about one, no matter how small it is, just to keep that in mind, because that's just not going to go away. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on anything Phil or I covered, or perhaps on anything we didn't cover this evening.
Just real quick on the working capital for the water and sewer fund. Can you kind of speak to the cause of the decrease?
The decrease in the working capital?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in what might help from a working capital, if I could, everybody's got a financial statement in front of them. I think it's probably going to be easier maybe to just point at some things here. So if you turn to page 15. So page 15 in that first column, that's your water and sewer fund. And working capital is really your current assets less your current liabilities. So in this case, it's just under 5 million of current assets, and current liabilities is just under $1 million. So it's roughly $4 million. On the graph package, we have it at 900,000. We always, and I think it says, we always exclude customer receivables from that calculation. One, because there's a large percent of that is actually unbilled, where you've taken an estimate of what's been used, but it hasn't even been billed yet. And at the same time, that receivable in and of itself, it's not like you can go knock on a door and there's going to be a cycle from that. So just to kind of let you know how you get from a working capital per the statement into what we're presenting here. But if you turn the page, on page 17, this is a cash flow statement. So really, when you take a look at it, the working capital that's left is primarily cash. I mean, this is cash-driven working capital. And page 17 is showing how you got really from the beginning of the year to the end of the year from a cash perspective. And I know it's confusing. I'm not expecting you to interpret it. But if you look at the middle of the page here, when you're dealing with capital asset purchases, more significant ones, which aren't operational, for the most part, capital is going to be system-related, local units of government have two choices, and it depends on really, how do you want to approach the purchases. It can either be debt-related or reserve-related. And for the past 2 years, for the most part, the city has made asset purchases in the water and sewer fund out of cash reserves in the water fund. So you could just as easily, I'm not recommending this. I mean, I'm sure the city has thought through the proper approach on these capital purchases, but you could always, issue debt and then pay it over a period of time. But then when you issue debt, what's the interest rate? Do I have the reserves? So that's how it's driven down. The important thing from a management and forecasting perspective is not as much as to, I won't discount what the level is, but making sure you understand how you got there. Like, was it planned? Did we think we're going to get there? Is it sustainable that we continue to pay for our capital out of reserves? Because it probably isn't, but you make that decision as part of your budget process. I'm sure the city manager and the finance director, when you're walking through and you're discussing water and sewer rates, which should happen on an annual basis, you're looking at this. So, is it lower? Yes. I suspect it's somewhat consistent to where you were budgeting those cash, those cash balances.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
The only thing I'd like to add at the end is, we're meeting here in January. Public Act 2 requires that the audit be completed and submitted to Treasury 180 days within year end. So when we met with city manager and finance and basically accepted it at that point, they did give us the go-ahead to load it up to Treasury. So even though we're meeting here today, this information was loaded up to Treasury within the 180 days for compliance with Public Act 2 of 1968. So from that perspective, the city is in compliance.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to thank Brian Marciniak, our city treasurer, and his staff. They are a great asset across the board for the city, and I think every year when Plan Moran comes for financial audit, they show it, that they're on the ball for everything, and the city is in a solid position, and that's thanks to Brian and his staff. And appreciate Dave and Phil for all the work that they do with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we have no community events. Item 9, we have a communication, or I have a communication. This past week, we had an issue with some gas meters freezing, and the people, approximately 200, according to DTE, had no heat. They had electricity, but no heat, no hot water. As we understand it, but this started back in last September, when somehow, many years ago, a gas line and a water line were laid on top, one on top of the other, and over the course of years, they wore through a hole in each line, which put water into the gas line. DPW fixed the water line, DTE came out and fixed the gas line. They supposedly blew out all the water out of the lines. Allegedly, they did, with everything freezing from the vapor that was left in there. Obviously, we're not sure that they got it all. But in the meantime, we had a lot of residents without hot water or heat, and it was cold. I was out of town, and I know it was cold back here. But there's a process, and we're trying to refine it and try to help the residents as much as possible. There is a Garden City Fix-It form on our website. If you go to our website, you'll see on there it's GC Fix-It, and also a little further down in the right of the 6 squares, you'll see it circled. That's another way you can click on it. And what that'll take you to is a form that will give us the ability to probably help you a little bit. We still want you to call DTE. Their number, I believe, is for something like that is 1-800-477-4747. We also heard that a lot of the residents weren't getting through and weren't being helped by DTE. In situations like that, major things, major power outages, they're not always the most helpful. When I talked to DTE during this, they said they had 20 people or 20 teams available right down the street, but yet I had to send them an address before they went to that house. I was also told they had 200 space heaters they bought from Home Depot that they were going to pass out. I later found out they only passed them out if the resident asked for it, which the residents didn't know they had to ask for it. They thought it was an automatic, and DTE didn't really relay that message. So to help, again, help with the residents, if you fill out this form for something major, such as no heat, no gas, a major power outage, not for a street light out, not for, other smaller issues, but like a downed wire, if you get a water main leak, brown water, those things would come into either the DTE hotline. You can go to DPW's phone if it's during their work hours, and if not, go to the police station, non-emergency line, which is 734-793-1700, and prompt number 3. And they will take your info and get it to either DPW or to someone at the administration that can get a hold of either DTE or whoever the group is that's responsible that should be out helping us. The next page will also take you to some other issues that you can report. Pothole, traffic signal, which will go over to Wayne County, high grass, weeds, that'll go to ordinance, unsafe park conditions, that'll go to Parks and Rec Department. But there's a whole system to this, but the main thing we want to do is we want to try and help the residents, and we can't guarantee that DTE is going to listen to us. Or recently we had someone complain that they hadn't gotten their mail in 3 days because people were off sick and post office didn't have people, so they went 3-4 days without it. They asked if there was anything we could do. Administration sent the letter, or took the letter over to the post office, who then responded. Sometimes they respond a little better to City Hall than they do to a single resident, unfortunately. But again, there is a form, and also DTE tracks supposedly how well they're doing their job on fixing these things. I'd like to track how they're maybe not always doing that well, but we can help I think we do help when we know. But going online to social media and saying you have no heat and you haven't had it for 4 days probably isn't going to help you with the city, because we don't know it. If we don't know where you're at, your physical address of where the problem is, we're not going to be able to call DTE and ask them to go to such and such address. We're just looking at a name with no address. So in the future, hopefully we're done with this issue. Don't know, I'm sure there's some more permanent fixes coming, but in the meantime, if there's major power outage, please give us a message on the Garden City Fix-It hotline. And that's all I have on that. Thank you. We have no public hearings. Item 11, consent agenda.
Mayor,
Councilmember Witt.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A1 through 3 as presented.
Support from Councilmember Lynch. Further comment from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Action items, item 1, it's the purchase of MyLaw law enforcement training system, and I'll call Chief Gibbons up to explain it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As part of the capital improvement budget this year was a restoration of our gun range at the PD. So with that in mind, we began examining what's our best use of money to improve our officers' training on the gun range. Where can we use it most efficiently? What can we do? Kudos to Sergeant Nate Cover and Sergeant Steve Daniels, who are here tonight. They took on that task. Them, along with Lieutenant Aronofsky, located a grant through the MRMA, our insurer, to get a 50% reimbursement on a system that they believe, and I believe, will improve our officers' training, especially when it comes to use of force. It is the Milo live training simulator. It'll go in our range. Like any profession, there's a lot of pressure on law enforcement to get better at anything, but particularly in the area of use of force. And as I watched Jared Goff play a heck of a game yesterday, I watched him go out and, before each set of downs, he'd go out, he'd practice throwing, have a conversation with his offensive coordinator, go out and make decisions, right? And you've got to have two things to be a good quarterback. You have to be able to throw the ball well, but you also have to know when and where to throw it. And as law enforcement officers, while the gravity of what we have to do is a heck of a lot more, it's similar in the concept of we have to be able to use force. We have to know how to use our firearms, how to use our tasers, how to use the handcuffs. We also, most importantly, need to know when and where to throw it, or to use force. So like a quarterback could have the best arm in the world. If he doesn't know where and when to throw the ball, he's not going to be great. We want our law enforcement officers to be the best they can be. So this combines both of those things. It allows you to do live action shooting, but also puts you in scenarios where you have to make decisions. And those decisions won't always be to shoot. Currently, as our range is set up, we put targets down range. They can move back and forth, and actually that system, the back and forth part of it isn't working, so our officers actually go out and utilize the range fully, which was fine. But if we're really trying to improve law enforcement officers using current technology, this live action can put them in scenarios. There's a screen projected in front of them. They can fire at that screen. It won't hurt it. And they have to make those quick life and death decisions. It also trains them to de-escalate, because not every one of those scenarios is shoot. Some of those are don't shoot. Some of them are shoot. Some of them are back off. Some of them are going to be, should the taser be appropriate? Different types of use of force can now be integrated into what would just be learning how to shoot a firearm. And now we're bringing in not just how, but when. So a fantastic system. We've located a grant that pays us 50%. If we would have redone the range just as it is today, we came up with an estimate around $150,000 with the moving targets. This addition is a $55,000 cost. Half of it's paid for by MRMA. So we're trying to be both progressive in our training and give our officers the best training we possibly can, but at the same time, do it in the most fiscally responsible way we possibly can. And we plan on utilizing forfeiture funds for our half anyways, so not general fund traditional revenue. So. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Earl.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go.
Go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem Dolan.
I remember last year being over at the police department at the gun range and speaking to you about this particular System, yeah. And there was a comment made that none of the other PDs in the area had anything like this, and there was the possibility of actually us gaining some revenue by allowing the other police departments to come in and use it. Is that still?
Well, we actually, because we have one of the few indoor ranges, we share with some of the other agencies, like, so they have an outdoor range, and we get to use their outdoor range, they use our indoor range. I think this only takes us up in the level of, hey, we've got really something to offer, what do you guys got? So currently, we have great relationships with Canton and Van Buren Township and those guys who have outdoor ranges, which for rifle training and things like that are necessary. And with, so we'll have an indoor range that's even further upgraded. And yes, anytime there's opportunities to, I think that's one reason why we're easily getting an MRMA grant, because now we tend to offer these services to other communities around us who are probably also MRMA clients as well. So, definitely, we're a big believer in, because we're all so close, all of our agencies, that we all work together, and when we're in trouble, we all help each other out. So why not do the same with training? So absolutely be used by other agencies as well, and we'll benefit both from allowing them to use it and get access to some of their stuff too. So.
Perfect, thanks.
I was going to ask the same thing.
Okay.
Who got to test it out? Officer Daniels?
I believe Officer Cover and Daniels have become very familiar with the simulator. So. Also I'd be remiss not to mention that, especially use of force, particularly deadly force, is very rare occurrence, but very high liability. We don't have anything better than a reminder of what happened the day after Christmas here, where our officers had to intervene in an active shooter situation. You want them prepared, even though it's low frequency, it's so high liability, and it's very difficult to place officer in scenarios where they have to make those quick decisions. And the better and better we can do it, the better I'm going to sleep at night.
Mayor?
Councilmember Earl.
I move to approve the attached agreement with FAAC Incorporated Milo of Ann Arbor, Michigan for the purchase, installation, and use of the Milo Range Classic Plus Live Fire Training System Judgment and De-escalation Simulator for $55,131.
Support. Lots of support for that one.
Love to hear it.
Support from Councilmember Squires.
Make sure they're well trained.
Any further comment from the table?
I'd just like to say thank you for looking into this. This is a tremendous tool for our officers who are already, I'm impressed with their level of professionalism and training, so this is a great tool, and I'm excited to see it.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Table. From the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Might as well stay there, Chief. Next item is police vehicle purchase.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As I always discuss every year around budget time, when it comes to purchasing police vehicles, we try and constantly evaluate our fleet. And I believe that what we should always be monitoring is, when do our vehicles start to hit that point where, hey, if we offload them now, will we get as much money as we could possibly get compared to the benefit of keeping them and having to pay or the cost of having to keep them, and as they get run down and become less and less valuable, but also more costly to continue to operate. I think when it comes to 4 of our investigative cars, we're at the point where we're starting to pay a lot more for repairs, and we're getting about the best value we can if we go trade them in right now. We worked out a deal with Gordon Chevrolet in order to trade in 4 of our very highly used investigative vehicles to get 3 much less used full-size vehicles. These are 4 mid-size sedans. We're going to get 2 SUVs and a full-size truck. The investigative activities I can't go fully into, but at the same, these are vehicles that are driven quite frequently, quite often, basically across southeast Michigan, and they need to be working and working well. We want to make sure that our guys are safe in those. These aren't pursuit vehicles, but where these guys go and what these guys have to do, the vehicles need to be running and need to be running well. And we're at a point with the mid-size sedans. And one in particular is my favorite is we actually got it on a forfeiture vehicle. We probably put a few $1,000s into it over the course of its use, and we're selling it back for almost exactly that amount we put into it over time. So this is just part of us trying to be efficient, because these vehicles are investigative and what their particular uses are for, we're going to use forfeiture money to make the purchase that's the difference between the trade-in and the new purchase.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
I do. It's not a
Counsel.
question so much on this, but for the general public, in a nutshell, Could you explain where the forfeiture funds come from and exactly what we're allowed to use them for?
Yes, so these are narcotics or drunk driving-related forfeiture funds. The lion's share of this is all from narcotics-related forfeitures based on our officers' activities who are assigned to narcotics enforcement teams throughout the area. This money comes in from the outside. It is only allowed for public safety use. These funds in particular with these vehicles will go right back to what they're actually doing. So it's essentially them paying for their own cars. You know, and Garden City then does own the asset. So we're getting narcotics-related forfeiture money, purchasing an asset that's actually owned by the city. It'll be owned by the city through the forfeiture fund. It'll be only used for law enforcement activity, but it'll be through the city. It's not coming out of the regular general fund or regular tax revenue. It's all revenue generated by officers' activity in either narcotics or drunk driving enforcement.
Mayor?
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Dolt.
I'd like to move to approve and agree to the trade-in of 4 2016 police vehicles for $19,500 and purchase of 3 vehicles for $83,087 for a total $63,587 from Gordon Chevrolet of Garden City, Michigan, to be paid from forfeiture funds.
Support. Support.
Support from Councilmember Witt. Any further comments from the table? From the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay. Item 3 is the coin acceptance policy. Do you want to speak on that, Mr. Marciniak?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a brief background on this. Typically, according to the way, if you don't have a policy, the way you have to manage when somebody comes to City Hall to pay any kind of a bill with an excessive amount of coin, you need to accept it if you don't have a policy, as long as they stay for the entire transaction. Haven't seen this in my 20 years of municipal experience. Typically, it happens more so at courts or places where people are really upset about something. They think they're going to stick it to the man, and they got to deal with another problem. This creates great inefficiencies at our department. I had someone come in and pay a bill with $350 of coin of Kennedy half dollars. So I had a whole area with $10 stacks of coin. Then we got to figure out how we're going to transport it. Obviously, it's not going into the night drop. Those kind of things. So we're allowed under Michigan law to limit what we take for coin. So this policy is just to ask that. We take 20 coins per transaction. We may, at our discretion, exceed that up to $25. That may include a $5 charge. So if you're going to use us for Coinstar, we're going to have to charge you, because sometimes we do need some quarters or we do something. So we're willing to take some more than just the 20 coins. And also in you know, that way we can limit how we do things for the coin acceptance. But we have to have a policy in place in order to be able to enforce anything. So that's what's being presented tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Councilmember Lynch.
I move to approve the coin acceptance policy in accordance with MCL 21.153 as presented.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Squires. Discussion from table.
Mayor,
Councilmember Karafotis.
does this only happen once?
Yes.
Yes, please. But I mean, we may have taken more coin, but this is the only time.
Do we think it's going to be a problem in the future? I'm just curious.
Don't know.
I mean, it hasn't happened once in 20 years. I'm just curious if we think that that's going to be happening more often.
We had a person in Macon, Georgia, that used to run for office every 2 years and lost every time, but would come in to pay their fee with gold coins riding a horse into City Hall. So you never know. I mean, it just limits.
This isn't Georgia.
We have horses. But it limits the choice of coming with so much coin. It is unusual. I smiled to myself thinking I've never seen this myself, but it's back to if you don't have a rule, you never know what's going to happen long term.
Okay, further comments? from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. No other business. Public comment. This will give you 3 minutes for anything not on the agenda. Anybody wishing to speak? Okay. Nobody, public comment? City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of reminders. Snow removal from sidewalks. City ordinance is within 24 hours after the snow stops. The snow should be shoveled from sidewalks. Keep in mind, it's not only a liability issue for the homeowner, but also for kids walking to school, for seniors on scooters, or walking down the street, joggers or anything else, walking down the sidewalk. It should be cleared within 24 hours. People have been ticketed and have complained about that. The other is the parking on the street. Pretty much every time there's a snowfall, there could be 100, 200 cars that get ticketed as the snow plows have to go around cars that are parked. The easiest, as we always tell everyone, is getting on Nixle, and it's always in the buzz, 888-777. So it's 3 8s, 3 7s. Text that with our zip code, and you will then receive all of our announcements when to get your cars off the roadway. They'll even give you a couple hours in advance, letting you know by 7 o'clock or so you need to get your car off the roadway. 100, 200 cars get ticketed on a regular basis every time it snows just to get off the roadway. So we'll put out that out a little more to remind everybody just to be on that list. And other information comes through Nixle also. I don't know if we're still at 3,000 people. At one point, that's all we had of 27,000 throughout the community. Only 3,000 numbers. That's a lot of information that's being missed by residents, so hopefully we get that out even more. So please remove the snow as soon as you can and get on Nixle for future issues.
That also includes businesses, correct?
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to, again, put a request out to anybody that is interested in working the elections. We still have a number of vacancies in our precincts for election inspectors. So please stop by the clerk's office or go online. You can see the election inspector application. Fill that out and come and serve the city as part of our democracy for voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dold.
I don't really have anything. I just wanted to give our condolences to the family of Bob Sheridan. We lost him the other day, and that's pretty much all I have.
Really, Bob?
Yeah.
Did not know that. Okay, thank you.
I didn't know
Councilmember Lynch.
I too would like to give my condolences to the family of Bob Sheridan. Did not hear that one, unfortunately. The other thing is, tonight is going to be raining and snowing and freezing, and it sounds like the Garden City schools may have called off already for tonight, so that means they're expecting slick roads in the morning. So if you have to get out in the morning, just make sure that you're careful, because that ice can be pretty bad. That's all that I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Witt.
Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Squires.
Just be careful with this crazy weather we've been having. It's, I'm sure the police department's been very busy out there with fender benders, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Karafotis.
Recently, we've talked to a couple nonprofit organizations, and I checked with our city manager tonight. We'd like to invite any nonprofit organization like Kiwanis or the Garden City Business Alliance, if they'd like to come to a meeting and do a presentation so the public can see what our clubs do and what services they offer and how they can be contacted. So I know a couple of those clubs are interested, so I hope we can get a few more. There's a lot of people in our city that are new to our city and don't know all the services that are available, so I hope we see them. I'd also like to find out about the firehouse audit. Is that coming up soon?
Yes, I'll talk to the chief tomorrow to see where he is. He's been meeting with him on numerous occasions at this point, so hopefully they should be finishing up at this point, because there was a dead date as far as cost.
Okay.
So the longer they do the work, that's a set fee. It's not
Right.
going any higher, so I'll report back to you tomorrow with that information.
Okay, and what about the master plan update? Is the planning commission about done?
They're not done yet. So we had one letter before them, and they're still kind of mulling over the information we gave them. So,
Okay.
but they, the action of the master plan will start at the planning commission if they feel they want to do a complete rewrite or do some sub-plans for certain areas, and they haven't made a decision.
They haven't made a decision, yet. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, earlier in the year, we talked about appointees, people that get appointed to boards in our city. We talked about this last spring. I had a concern, Councilwoman Dole and Councilman Earl both agreed that if we have board members that can't attend meetings, that we need to find someone else for their spot. And in the last few months, we've had multiple different boards that have had to cancel their meetings due to no quorum. We have a new DDA member who's just been appointed this year that's missed 6 out of 9 meetings. So I think we need to maybe put something out more often to our residents that and our business owners that we need you for these boards. We need you to volunteer. We need people that can make it so that we have a better choice of people that can be there and attend and make the decisions that we need them to. And then the last thing that I had was a few meetings ago, we honored our city manager for his 5 years of service on social
No,
media.
hold on. Wasn't for 5 years of service. It was for being the longest tenured city manager in history. Garden City's history.
Okay, a few weeks ago, we honored our city manager for being the longest city manager, and I would hope for his service that he's here. On social media, I mentioned a few other long-term employees that have always provided us with good service. And tonight, I want to mention a couple more. Officer Craig Lewis has been with our PD since 2016. Our court reporter, Amy Cannon, has been with us since 2015. James Lenz has been our librarian since 2013. I just wanted to thank those people also, to the staff who dedicate their career to working for our community. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember
I
Earl.
just want to mention representing the employee. There's a whole lot more that were here a lot longer. Yeah, 30-year employees, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Earl.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 2 things. First, to Brian Marciniak and his staff, thank you for another good job. The last few audits, when they've come in, they have nothing but great things to say about how accurate, punctual, and professional our books are, so we appreciate it. And then, can we find out when Merriman's going to open? This is ridiculous. I would like to not have to add 3 miles to every drive.
We can try. I've been in contact with the Wayne County Commissioner, and
I haven't seen anybody working in I don't know how long.
he has no answer either, so.
All right.
That's it. Thank you. I have nothing other than, I guess, condolences to Bob Sheridan. I did not know he passed on. He actually built my house, and we were talking about him the other day. So condolences to his family, also to the family of Mr. Skinner from our Historical Commission. Condolences go out to his family also. And having no further business, this meeting is adjourned.